in this video, we are going to take up the case study on process costing, another very interesting case study and extremely important as a question also. Let's see, without wasting any time, let's start with the case study. Arnav Limited manufactures chemical solutions used in the paint and the adhesive products. Chemical solutions are produced in the different processes. Some of the processes are hazardous in nature, which may result in the fire accidents. So they are the manufacturer of the certain chemicals. At the end of the last month, one fire accident occurred in the factory. The fire destroyed some of the paper files containing the records of the process operations for the month. Okay. You being an associate to the chief manager finance are assigned to prepare the process accounts for the month during which the fire occurred. From the documents and files of other sources, the following information could be retrieved. So there was a fire in the factory, because of which the main documents were destroyed, but some of the information could be retrieved, and the management is asking that from whatever the information we have been able to retrieve, please prepare the process accounts from that particular part, right? Okay, let's see what is the information that could be retrieved. Opening work in progress. Okay, so something related to the opening WIP is given. That opening WIP at the beginning of the month was 500 liters. 80% complete for labor and 60% complete for overheads. Opening WIP was valued at 2,78,000. Sir, what about the material? No information is given regarding what is the material cost that is incurred on on opening WIP. We will see if something is given related to that. Then the closing WIP, the information relating the closing WIP is given. That closing WIP at the end of the month was 100 liters, 20% complete for labor and 10% complete for overheads. Okay, sir, fine. That is degree of completion given. Again, the degree of completion for the materials is not given. Let's see. Normal loss is 10% of the input fresh. Which input? Fresh input. That means when you are calculating the normal loss, the opening WIP input is not to be considered. Only the fresh input is to be considered, 10% of that. And the total losses during the month were 800 liters, partly due to the fire damage. So what they are saying is total loss was 800 liters. Out of this 800 liters, some part is your normal loss and some part is your abnormal loss. How much is normal loss and how much is abnormal loss, we'll find out. The output transferred to the finished goods was 3400 liters. So finally, this was the total quantity which was transferred to the finished goods. Losses have a scrap value of rupees 20 per liter. Okay, fine, sir. Now, what they say, all the raw materials are added at the commencement of the process. So what does this line mean? This line means that the degree of completion for material is what? Material is 100%. That means the 100% of the material you input at the beginning of the process. The cost per equivalent unit is 660 for the month, made up as follows: raw material 300, labor 200 and overheads 160. This is what is given, the cost per equivalent unit. That is given to you. Okay, fine, sir. The company uses the FIFO method to value the WIP and finished goods. The following information are required: that how much quantity of the raw material introduced during the month, right? This is the fresh raw material introduced during the month. How will you calculate this? Now, just try to understand one equation. I am saying let the raw material introduced to be X, right? I'm saying let raw material introduced, that is the fresh raw material introduced, be X. Now, just try to understand. I'm going to write an equation. Just try to understand whether that equation is correct or not. I am saying this company was having 500 liters of opening WIP. Yes or no? Yes, sir. Plus X raw material was introduced fresh, right? So that means this becomes what? This becomes your total input. This becomes your total input, that is 500 liters from the opening WIP, and X, that is the fresh input. So whatever the output will be, that will be from this total input. This becomes your total input. Yes or no? Opening plus fresh. Fresh, we are saying X. Okay, sir. Now, out of this, what will happen? Out of this, they say 100 is your closing WIP. 100 is still in process. 800 has been lost, whether it is a normal loss or whether it is an abnormal loss, doesn't matter, it has been lost, right? And the rest has been transferred to finished goods, which is 3400 liters. Is this equation correct? Right? I'm saying 500 opening WIP plus fresh input, that is your total input. Out of that, 100 is still in the process, that is a closing WIP. 800 has been lost, whether it is a normal loss or an abnormal loss, it has been lost. And so whatever the remaining is, what? The remaining is transferred to the finished good, that is given as 3400. So can we find out the value of X from here? That is 3400 plus 900 minus 500. That X value comes out to 3800. So this is your fresh input. This is your fresh input of raw material during the period, 3800 liters. So the answer here is option D, that is 3800 liters, correct? Now, second thing they are asking is the quantity of normal loss and abnormal loss. See, the total loss is how much? Total loss is 800. Out of this 800, something is your normal loss and some is abnormal loss. Normal loss is 10% of 10% of what? Read the line very carefully. Normal loss is 10% of the fresh input. What is the fresh input we have just calculated? 3800. So what will be your normal loss? That is 10% of 3800, that is 380. So 800 minus 380, that is your 420 is your abnormal loss. So normal loss, so it will be what? It will be option A for you, that is normal loss of 380 liters and abnormal loss of 420 liters. Clear? Now they say value of raw material added to the process during the month. Value of raw material added to the process during the month. What is the total value of the raw material that is incurred during the month? Total value of the raw material incurred. For that, what we have to do is we have to prepare the statement of equivalent production and statement of cost per equivalent unit. From there, we will be able to calculate this value. Let's prepare the statement of equivalent production first. Okay, let's do it. So first we'll prepare what? First we'll prepare statement of equivalent production. Statement of equivalent production. For that, how we take input? What is your input? Then we take particulars. Then we have output. After that, material cost. Then we have labor cost. And then we have overheads, right? Here we write percentage, that is degree of completion, and equivalent quantity. Again, in the labor, percentage and quantity. Then in the overheads also percentage and quantity. Clear with this? Okay, now what is the input here? The input is the opening WIP of 500 liters and the fresh input of 3800 liters. Isn't it? The fresh input we have just calculated, the fresh input of 3800 and the opening WIP. So this is your opening WIP. This is from your fresh input. Now, what is the output here? Just try to understand. The company is following the FIFO method. The FIFO method says what? The FIFO method says the first we will complete our opening WIP. So output here we will complete opening WIP. Will there be any material cost on the opening WIP? No sir, because 100% of the material was incurred when this process started in the previous period. So in this current period, no material cost on opening WIP. What about the labor cost? On the opening WIP, 80% of the labor cost was incurred in the previous period. 20% will be incurred in this period, right? So the labor percentage degree of completion will be 20%, that comes to 100 units. For overheads, 60% was complete in the previous period, 40% will be complete in this period. So 40% I'll take here, that is 200 units. What about the fresh input? What about the fresh input? Sir, total quantity that is transferred is 3400 liters. Yes or no? Out of this, 500 liters belongs to what? It belongs to opening WIP. Why? Because FIFO method. FIFO method says first we are going to complete our opening WIP. Remaining 2900 will be the completed units from the fresh input. Right? So here it will be 2900 units, 100% degree of completion, 2900 units, 100% degree of completion, 2900 units, 100% degree of completion, 2900 units. Clear with this? After that, what else we have to take? We have to take the normal loss also. Yes, sir, we'll take normal loss also. That is 380 units. Nothing to be taken in the equivalent units. Then we will take here abnormal loss also. Abnormal loss of 420 units, and we will assume the degree of completion to be 100% because the degree of completion for abnormal loss is not given separately. So we'll assume it to be 100%, 420, 100%, 420. Rest will take here closing WIP. The final item will be closing WIP, 100 units, material cost 100%, whereas labor and overheads they say 20% complete for labor and 10% for overheads. Okay, so we'll take here 20% for labor, that is 20, and 10% for overheads, that is 10. Is the output and input matching? Just we have to see this. This comes to 4300. On the other side also you have to tell you whether it is 4300. 380 plus 420 plus 100. Yes. So in the statement of equivalent production, you have to always see that your input and output column should match. Now we will calculate the equivalent units for material. 2900 plus 420 plus 100, that comes to 3420. 3420. What are the equivalent units for labor? That is 100 plus 2900 plus 420 plus 20, that comes to 3440. And the last one, that is 200 plus 2900 plus, this comes to 3530. Right? So these are the equivalent units. This is your statement of equivalent production. Now the next what we are going to prepare is, next we will prepare statement of cost per equivalent unit. Statement of cost per equivalent unit. Statement of cost per equivalent unit. Okay, how do we prepare this? We'll write here particulars, amount, then we have equivalent units and cost per equivalent unit. Now the first element that we have is material. Right? Now the amount of material is not available. This is what we need to calculate, that what is the material cost incurred in the current period. This is the thing that we need to calculate. From material you will subtract your scrap value of which loss? Scrap value is given as 20 rupees. Losses have a scrap value of 20. But here when you are preparing the statement of cost per equivalent unit, which loss will you take? Whether you will calculate for normal and abnormal loss both, or whether you will take it only for normal loss, or whether for abnormal loss. What will you take here? Sir, the abnormal loss scrap will be taken where? To the abnormal loss account. It will not reduce your material cost, right? But here you will take the scrap value of your normal loss. So normal loss is 380 multiplied by 20. That comes to 7600. So this will be your net material cost. But we cannot calculate the net material cost. Okay, let's try to find out the way in which we can calculate net material cost. Are the equivalent units given? Yes, sir. Equivalent units we have already calculated here. That comes out to 3420. This is your equivalent units for material. I'll write it in the equivalent units, that is 3420. My next question. Read the question very carefully. do you have the cost per equivalent unit for the material element? Cost per equivalent unit for what? For raw material. Is it given? Yes, sir, it is given. That is 300 rupees. So what is given here is this cost per equivalent unit, that is 300. So can I find out now the net material cost? Yes. If I multiply these two, what I will get is 3420 multiplied by 300, that is 10,26,000 is your net material cost. Otherwise, normally what you do is you have this cost, you divide it by the equivalent units to calculate cost per equivalent unit. But here the equivalent units were given, the cost per equivalent unit was given, so we multiplied to get the net material cost. That is the reverse way. Now if you have got the net material cost, you have the scrap value. Can you get this value? Yes, sir. Add 7600, you will get this value. So what do you have to do? This plus 7600, this value comes out to be 10,33,600. So this was the requirement of the question. 10,33,600 value of raw material added to the process during the month. So they are not talking about the net material, because the raw material cost which was added to the process was this cost. After that, we adjusted the scrap value of normal loss to get the net material cost. But added material cost is 10,33,600. So you need to read the lines very carefully and interpret it very carefully. This is very important. Okay, next part, value of labor and overheads in the closing WIP. In the closing WIP, what is the value of labor? Okay, so let's see labor and overheads. For closing WIP, what are the equivalent units? What are the equivalent units? The equivalent units are 20 and 10. Do you have the equivalent cost? Do you have the equivalent cost per equivalent units? Yes, sir. 200 and 160. That's it. So labor cost will be how much? Labor will be 20 units, and for every equivalent unit the cost is 200. Yes, 200 only, no? What is given? 200 only. Wait. Yes, 200. Correct. So this will come to 4,000. For overheads, 10 units, and the cost per equivalent unit is given to you, that is 160. So that comes to 1600. So total will be rupees 5600. Okay, 4,000 and 1600. That is option A. Total was not required. Individual cost they were asking for. Labor and overheads. Labor 4,000, overheads 1600. Correct. Then they are asking for value of output transferred to finished goods. Now, finished goods valuation will involve two parts. One is regarding the opening WIP. Regarding the opening WIP. Okay, in case of opening WIP, what is there? Some cost is incurred in the previous period. Some cost is incurred in the previous period. What is that cost which is incurred in the previous period? It is given as 2,78,000. I'll take that. 2,78,000. And there is certain cost which is incurred in the current period. What is that cost incurred in the current period? In the current period, the cost is incurred related to labor and overheads. That's it. The cost is related to labor and overheads. That is this equivalent 100 units and 200 units. So how will you calculate the current period cost? 100 units of labor multiplied by rupees 200, that is the cost per equivalent unit for labor, plus 200 units for overheads multiplied by rupees 160, right? So this comes to 52,000. So this is the total cost which is incurred related to opening WIP plus 2,78,000, 3,30,000. This is regarding opening WIP. Add. Now in this I will add that whatever is completed from the fresh input, right? How many units were completed from the fresh input, that is for 2900 units, what will be the cost incurred? Sir, material cost incurred? Yes, sir. Labor cost incurred? Yes, sir. Overheads incurred? Yes, sir. This is the total cost per equivalent unit incurred on the making of 2900 units. So I will add here 2900 units multiplied by rupees 660. That comes to 19 lakh 14,000. That comes to 19 lakh 14,000. So what will be the total cost? 3 lakh 30,000. That comes to 22 lakh 44,000. This is the total value that is taken to finished goods, right? So finished goods will have two components. One, that from opening WIP, because some part of the opening WIP was completed in this part. It was completed, it was transferred to the finished goods in this particular period, plus whatever is incurred on the fresh input. On the fresh input, you will incur 100% of material cost, 100% of labor cost, and 100% of overhead cost. So this cost per equivalent unit was given 660, which includes material, labor, overhead cost. Whereas in case of opening WIP, only the previous period is given. In the current period, the cost is incurred only on labor and overheads, not on anything else. Clear? So this is a very, very important question. As a question also, it can be asked in the examination, right? So with this, we are done with the process costing. Next, we'll take up joint and byproducts.